Hi, welcome to Regenerative Revolution. I'm Jacki Saorsail here with Isaiah Urth, and this is basically a fishbowl consulting session where I am helping Isaiah come up with a business model for his nonprofit called UrthKynd, which may have some for-profit components or partnerships involved. We're kind of working out the details of that right now. And so we're here live on Twitch. And we're encouraging people to join the conversation. This is a community-based organization, so multiple people could get involved. And so you're welcome to join us, give us input, make suggestions, ask questions, give us feedback, all of that. We're live on Twitch on a regular basis, so you can see the schedule on my website at regenerativedynamics.com. And we're also putting these episodes on YouTube. So if you're watching on YouTube, thank you very much. You can like and subscribe, all that jazz. And I also have a Patreon. You can support what I'm doing that way. And you can also contact Isaiah and look into what he's doing. Sorry, it was a little cut off there. His Facebook and Instagram. Below him, you can see that. And below me, you can see the workbook that we've been working on. It's the Regenerative Enterprise Design workbook, so you can see right there. And over the last few sessions, we've been working through his purpose and vision, his value proposition, stuff about his market and how he's delivering products and services. And now we are talking about financial goals. And in our conversation a couple weeks ago, we kind of hit a wall here because it became apparent that we weren't clear enough about what Isaiah was going to do initially, what he was starting with, to actually put numbers to what he needed to come up with to get started. And as we were talking about different options, he's got some community garden spaces available, and we were talking about different things that he could grow. But then we started talking about him possibly growing things in his own house like microgreens and mushrooms, and we both got really excited about that idea and started kind of going off on it and talking about it. And so it's looking like that's more of a possibility of what he might start with first, although he does have these other plots, so we might talk about what he can do on that simultaneously. But it's getting interesting and a little more complicated, having multiple things going. So we're trying to figure out how it all fits together and how it fits with his bigger vision. Yeah, that's definitely a different idea, growing things in his own house than it would be growing things outdoors in a community garden with lots of other people. So it's kind of where we're at in the conversation. We're trying to get more specific about it. So before we get into the weeds with that again, let's do a brief check-in. Isaiah, how are you doing today?
I'm doing wonderful. It's been a beautiful couple of weeks. Did a lot of work in the garden and a lot of swimming in the ocean, and got my back kind of torqued, but I got over it and back into doing some gardening today, even though it's almost like 100 degrees outside. So that's my plan for the evening. And yeah, it's beautiful. How are you doing?
I am doing well. I had a busy week. I recorded 4 episodes last week and still need to post a couple. I was having some audio issues, but we're going to keep an eye on it this time. So hopefully don't have any more problems. And okay, so let's figure out where we're at. So we're talking about growing microgreens. At the end of the last episode, actually, after we got off, I kind of gave you my download on an idea I had for growing mushrooms, and gave you an experiment to run if you wanted to, and you seemed interested in that. But also, you've gotten some supplies to start growing microgreens already. So why don't you just tell us where you're at with that?
Yeah, so I decided to take 2 racks and just like we spoke about, get them in a room. So I had to actually disassemble them and get them over like a mountain of stuff in the garage, like accumulation of stuff, um, and uh, and then get them so pieced back together. But I'm going to do that in the room because I'm kind of thinking of I don't know about painting it first, but I definitely want to wipe down everything and just start with like a very clean, sterile environment.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and pretty much, yeah, I have everything needed for the mushroom experiment. I need to order spores.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of got stuck on that because I didn't know if There was one or maybe two or three different kinds that we could experiment with. So we could talk about that. Yeah, and basically the price per rack comes to about I think it was about 450-ish, 440, something like that per rack. And that's because I already had kind of a lot of trays in storage. But the biggest expense, of course, were the seeds and the lights. And then the little tiny fans and things like that are really cheap. So yeah, not too bad. Slightly over budget, because I was trying to keep it all within 650, but I didn't want to go very cheap on the lights because I know that the lights really make a big difference, you know. So and thankfully I didn't have to buy a portable AC. I have a really tiny one that was in the garage, so and it works. I got it all cleaned out and everything. So yeah, I'll update with pictures as we go along, but we've made some progress.
Great. Yeah, and if you could send me the exact numbers when I transfer information into the business model canvas, I want to have, you know, the most accurate information.
Sure thing.
Okay, cool. Okay, so you said it's $400 per rack. So how much have you spent so far?
It's been about 900 almost. Yeah, it'll be 9 when it's all said and done. I need some more like surge protectors, like a hose. I'm looking for like a hose solution for indoor watering because I don't want to just like pour it over and risk dispersing the seeds. I just don't know how it's going to work. So I'm kind of looking for like maybe like a small trash can type thing that's food grade or something like that I can fill with water, and like a little pump that'll just provide like a gentle shower over the top. So that's what I'm trying to think of because there's no like sink nearby or water access.
Well, you could use like one of those pump sprayers maybe that kind of mists.
Oh yeah. Okay, yeah, because they don't need a lot. Why didn't I think of that? That's perfect.
Yeah, they make those in like everything from 1 gallon to 5 gallons or something.
Sure. I mean, you could even use like a sprayer, I guess, if you wanted to. And one thing that I was thinking about, if down the road I could get a tent, because if the humidity could be something, you get a humidifier, you keep the humidity at a certain sort of humidity, you may not even need to water all that much. I don't know. But it seems like with the right humidity, they just flourish.
Yeah. Well, I'm curious about this room. What kind of floor does it
have? It's a wood floor. Old. I wouldn't say older, but it's established like wood flooring. So I was really actually thinking, because it's still very clean, but I was thinking of maybe doing getting a tent. One of those little tents that you can get.
Well, I'm thinking more to protect the wood. You might want to put down some plastic or rubber on the floor. Yeah, I've thought before about using like pond liner as a floor just over wood or something because it's a little thicker than plastic and doesn't tear too easily. But I don't know how bad that would be as far as being slippery to walk on. Just turn off your phone.
Sure. Uh-oh. Sorry, I don't know how to close this.
Uh-oh.
Sorry. Okay. Are we back? I'm sorry about that.
Yeah.
Sorry. Phone. I didn't know my phone was connected to my computer. I apologize.
Yeah, that's happened to me before. If I have my Gmail open, it'll ring in my Gmail. In fact, I'm going to close my Gmail right now just in case that happens.
Yeah.
So I have a Google Fi phone, so it'll ring in Gmail.
That was a surprise. Sorry.
It's all right. Spent $900 as of today. Was today the 6th.
Yeah, and thankfully I could leverage. We have a couple of sort of donors who I've met over the internet, and then another friend of mine, when he was managing the social media stuff, he got in contact with a donor who's interested and so it's been good to kind of have that help, you know.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
we're able to kind of get the rest. The rest is promised to come in,
Mhm.
so that's really positive. Yeah.
Mhm.
So it's actually not over budget because they kind of saved the day. So big
Mhm.
shout out to Mr. Martin for that.
Mhm. 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 Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I mean, I'd recommend putting something down on the floor, or just like painting it with a polyurethane or something,
Hmm.
because
Hmm.
if it's going to be wet in there, and it could get moldy, or even growing mushrooms in the floor, and that would not. You don't want mushrooms
Yeah.
popping up out of your floor. That
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
wouldn't be good.
Yeah, it might be, I'm really going to look into the tent because I think this is only taking up with two tents, with two racks, it's really only taking up maybe, I don't know, 25, 30 square feet. So maybe there's a tent out there that will sort of provide that, that whole protective environment.
Mhm.
Yeah, but, it's an experiment. I'll have to see how it scales.
Yeah. At the same time, you
Yeah.
don't want it to like trap in the air too much to not have enough airflow. Um, could get
Right.
could get
Yeah. So
icky
now,
if it's too stagnant.
yeah. So now we probably have to look at having the portable AC in the tent and then having some kind of exhaust. And the portable AC would be bringing in the fresh air. So this is already, it's kind of getting a little pricey, but I mean, I think within like 3 or 4 harvests, assuming they're all sold at $20 a flat, it will pay for itself. And
Mhm.
those 3 or 4 harvests can really happen in 1 month.
Mhm.
But the big thing is it going to sell?
Yeah.
And so that's, I think, where the social media and the, getting the word out, having the little pamphlets with the information. I think that's where it's going to come in, and doing it like a subscription style, like you had talked about.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
I
Yeah,
think
we
that was a
also
great idea.
mentioned that right at the end.
Hmm.
Was doing it like a CSA, and people have memberships and get a package of microgreens every week. And I
Hmm.
think that is a good way to do it. Then you don't end up with a bunch of extra you can't sell because you know how many you have to produce.
Right.
Uh, yeah, that sounds great. And then if you had extra stuff, you'd already have this market base to sell to. If you had squash or something from
Hmm.
your
Hmm.
gardens.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, it doesn't cost a lot to produce it. I mean, cons- putting the debt part aside, it doesn't cost a lot once you have everything to put the seeds in there and get and just turn a new crop in 7 days.
Yeah.
So my thinking is, even if they all don't sell, it would provide an opportunity to hopefully give some away and just help people to experience it, because I think when you know the health part of it, and you like the taste,
Hmm.
even if you don't quite like the taste all the way, it's like,
Hmm.
the health benefits are just tremendous. So
Hmm.
it's worth it. It's a good
Hmm.
sacrifice. So
Hmm. Hmm.
that's my hope, is that people will embrace it and start to do it themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you decide on how you're going to grow the microgreens as far as what substrate and how you're going to sell it?
Yeah, well, I'm really, that's the only thing that actually we need to grab, is some kind of way to package it.
Hmm.
But yeah, everything that I've read though, in the last like week, once you package it, you have to have a commercial kitchen, and you're supposed to have it,
Hmm.
looked at and certified.
Yeah.
When you just sell the flats and people can put a deposit on the flat, or they can harvest it, themselves right there, then I think you kind of get over that.
Yeah. Well, if you had the subscription, then you could be, giving people the flats and expecting them to bring it back.
Hmm.
There's a
Hmm.
deposit involved. You have to bring the tray back to get
Sure.
another one or something. Or
Yeah.
just, leave
Yeah.
it on your porch and we'll switch it out. You
Right.
know.
Yeah. And we sterilize it, all that good stuff, disinfect it, all natural stuff. And then, yeah, I think that
Yeah,
would be a
you could do
beautiful
it
way.
that way. You could do it. Another thing I was thinking about was, instead of the tiny, almost sprout-like microgreens, you could do baby greens, like baby spinach, baby bok
Yeah.
choy, that sort of thing. Like, you know, what's that brand? Organic Girl.
Hmm.
those greens. I eat those all the time, but they're pretty expensive. I mean, they get like $4 for a container this big.
Mm.
But
Yeah,
anyway.
the logistics piece I think might be challenging because on a day like today, by 9 a.m. it was like 92 degrees outside. So the trays probably, I don't know how well they would hold up like that. Like doing deliveries.
Mm-hmm.
So that's another consideration. Is now, well, normally if they're packaged, you could kind of put them in a cooler type of situation,
Mm-hmm.
but in the trays they're really bulky and you can't do that.
Well, then they might have to come pick it up from you and switch it out, but that's going a
Yeah,
lot out of the way.
unless it's within a 1 mile
Uh
radius.
huh.
If it's hyper local, which is really that's the best thing for microgreens anyway, because they don't have that long. I think that's why they were saying, a lot of people saying the big companies haven't jumped on that and been able to take over the whole microgreen sort of industry, because they're so particular with, they're fragile and they don't have a shelf life. They're hard
Yeah.
to transport long distance. So it's really a hyper local kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah. So are mushrooms, and they are a good pairing for that reason, because it
Mhm.
justifies, going out of your way to get something, because it's a very perishable, hard to get thing.
Mhm.
So yeah, we had talked about, maybe growing mushrooms on rice to sell medicinally, but if you did want to fruit some and actually sell the mushroom caps, and deliver them, or have people come get them with their microgreens, that would make sense as well.
Mm.
It's
Absolutely.
just it's hard to fruit mushrooms, especially in a small home space. Just getting that balance of humidity and oxygen just right, and keeping it there enough to get a consistent crop is a little challenging. I mean, I've tried, like with the kits on your counter and whatnot, and it's like sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't.
Mm.
Um,
Well, my feeling is, I feel like environmentals can be controlled with, definitely, like with the tents, and it's just it's a high sort of initial overhead cost, because you're going to have a climate controller, which is going to control your temperature and your humidity. It can even control your dehumidity,
mhm,
all of that in one. But that controller alone is like $200 or $300.
mhm,
And you're talking a small portable
mhm,
AC unit,
mhm,
and then the humidifier and the dehumidifier, which you could
mhm.
probably find those online used.
Yeah,
So it's not hard, and you could
yeah.
start in maybe 25 square feet. A
Uh,
5 by 5 tent, which is, I looked into all this. That would probably be about I think 150 to 200 for a 5 by 5 tent. So if it's worth it, you
mhm,
know, to it could very well
mhm.
be a good investment.
Yeah, I don't know what percentage humidity microgreens need. Do you know that?
Offhand, I don't remember. I'm going to take a guess and say 60 to 70. But let me research
I'm
that right now.
googling it. 40 to 60.
40 to 60. Okay, cool. I was off a little bit. I would have killed him. But
40 to 60. Well, with mushrooms and fruiting, it's like 80%. Um,
whoa, yeah, wow. That's
so what I'm thinking is put your mushrooms, maybe have a tent within a tent. Put your mushrooms in a tent with a humidifier, and you can't just use a evaporative humidifier. You have to use an ultrasonic humidifier that's actually going to spit mist up into the air.
that sounds
Uh,
expensive.
no, I
Let me
can
Google
build
that.
one. I can tell you how to build one.
Really?
They can be expensive. I mean, a small one isn't
Cool.
too expensive, but you can make one out of pond foggers.
Oh,
You
cool.
know what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah. They use them in Halloween. Do they use
yeah,
them in Halloween time? Yeah.
just put that
Beautiful.
in. So what I used was a 5 gallon bucket, and I put the pond mister in there, just sitting on top of a cup or something, and then I used a toilet the what's it called, fill valve. Put a toilet fill valve in the bucket so
Mhm.
that it would keep the water level constant,
Mm,
because you
mm,
you need the water level to stay just above the surface of that pond fogger to
mm.
keep letting it out. Um, So yeah, that just kept the water in there, and you just have to take it out and clean it once or
Hmm.
twice, like once a week or every other week,
Hmm.
because it gets kind of gunky. Although if you could put a filter, a water filter on the line coming into the bucket, you wouldn't have to do it as often. It's mostly minerals that get caked on there.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah, so like
Yeah.
a softener type of thing.
Yeah. If you could
Okay.
filter or soften the water to keep it from uh, getting minerals on the
Hmm.
head, uh,
Okay.
the ultrasonic head. Yeah, that would definitely make them last a lot longer, and you wouldn't have to clean it as often. But yeah, that and you could put several of them in the bucket as well to make more mist, and
Hmm.
then I just put a fan blowing to blow it out of the bucket. But yeah, in a small space, and then the fan is also helping circulate the air. So yeah, you'd have like a tent with that creating very thick humidity within the tent,
Hmm.
and then outside of that tent, you'd have your microgreens growing and maybe have your mushrooms that are just incubating, that aren't fruiting yet, sitting
Hmm.
outside of the tent. And then you could just have like a fan on a timer, occasionally exchanging the air between inside the mushroom tent and outside of the mushroom tent. So that way you'd actually be getting some of the humidity.
Oxygenated. Oh, humidity.
Well,
Okay.
you need to do,
Yeah.
air
Oh, yeah.
exchange,
Yeah.
but
So,
then you'd be taking advantage of the whole oxygen carbon dioxide from the two things, and you'd
sure.
be getting some of the humidity from the mushroom tent into the microgreens area,
Hmm.
but not all of it. It might be enough to
Oh,
keep
yeah.
it moisturized just by doing an air exchange, every 30 minutes or every 20 minutes with the mushroom tent.
Hmm. So, yeah, yeah. So, tent within a tent, basically. Um, so like 100 square foot tent, and then within the 100 square foot, get like a 25 square foot tent, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
then the 25 square foot tents don't have to work as like in terms of the temperature and the humidity control. They don't have to work as hard because the
Yeah.
bigger tent is already supplying most of that. I get what
The bigger tent would have the
you're.
temperature control, and you would have more humidity in the smaller tent, but you might not even need a humidifier in the bigger tent because
Yeah.
you have so much humidity in the smaller tent that's coming out on a regular basis.
Yeah, humidity and CO2. So I get what you're saying. It's that
Mm-hmm.
permaculture stacking functions sort of
Mm-hmm.
thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
what would be the best is if you can get it so balanced that you actually don't have to bring in oxygen from the outside, that you
Hmm.
actually don't have to bring in air from outside,
Hmm.
because
Hmm.
then you don't have to fight with whatever's going on outside.
Contaminants. Is that
Contaminants,
what?
heat, lack of
Heat. Yeah.
humidity, whatever.
Yeah.
If you don't
Yeah.
have to do an air exchange with outside, that's going to save you an immense amount of energy.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. And come to think of it, the rooms, especially during 90-degree days, they get kind of hot. And there's there's central AC, but it's kind of for the whole bottom level
Mm-hmm.
floor. So it's very, it doesn't make sense to run central AC if there's only, two or three people here, um, because upstairs, mostly, people are mostly dwelling upstairs, and that's kind of where. So those are my thoughts. I guess to keep it as energy efficient as possible, that's probably the best solution. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't want the air conditioning in the mushroom area anyway, because air
Mm,
conditioning will pull moisture out of the air.
mm,
So
mm-hmm,
if you can keep that outside in the outside tent,
mm-hmm.
you can really concentrate that humidity.
Cool. Yeah. So the outside tent would have like the pre-fruiting
Mm-hmm.
batch of
Mm-hmm.
things and the microgreens.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that would work. I think that would work really nice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It might be best to get a couple of tents after all.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if you need to make the entire room the out if the outside tent really needs to be a tent or just the room. It depends on, I guess, how much moisture you're gonna lose through the door and the walls. And
Hmm. Hmm.
mm, I mean, at 40 to 60% humidity, that's like typical for a muggy day. I think
Hmm.
that's not like 80% is dangerous for your floor. You definitely want to keep that completely sealed so that it doesn't, you know, cause moisture damage to your house.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, we were doing it in a concrete basement when we were growing them in my house.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, but even then we like put foam because there was wood on the ceiling, so we just put foam boards all the way across the ceiling and like used foam insulation to, seal it. Because
Oh,
yeah, I was worried about humidity getting up into the
mm-hmm.
floorboards and causing rot.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But you,
All
you
right.
you might not need to enclose the whole thing, but you can try it and see if you need to.
Okay.
I'd
Okay.
say.
Yeah. Very good points.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. I love talking through this
Mhm.
stuff, but let's see. Okay, let me go to my questions here and see if we can fill in more of this. So, the first question was, what are your financial goals for the next year? And we had talked about having one or two locations that are regenerative, that they are, breaking even, at least making
Mhm.
making a profit for sure. You want them to be making a profit. And then you have these two plots currently. And you were saying at the beginning that you have some other plots available now as well, or
Yeah, plots as far as like the backyard space, which is pretty big.
mm-hmm.
So what we have, this community, sort of the houses all are separated by little gates, but the backyards, like the bottom part of the yards, are they typically slope down, and then the bottom level that's flat, um, there will be like just a very open space, or some of them actually have concrete, so they're like basketball courts. And so I'd gotten together with a few neighbors when I had the soil delivered, before I came upon the logistical issue of getting all the soil into the right place, because that was a $650 or so, I think, for 2 hours of their time to come in with the machine and move it, because it's just a mountain of stuff. So yeah, I'd spoken with a few of the neighbors, and they were actually really interested in using a portion or all of their space for like a community project. And so we kind of toyed with this idea. And, one, for example, really wants to get involved and would have a lot of time to sort of, you know, tend to it.
Mm-hmm.
But a couple of the others, are just kind of busy. They wouldn't have a lot of time. They would rather just have, some food every month, or, every
Mm-hmm.
so often, a
Mm-hmm.
small percentage of it. Um, so that's where we are.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still confused about what it is that you want these gardens to end up as, because we've talked about like production, as in like growing a bunch of garlic and greens and stuff like that, which, if you're going to actually produce it to sell, would be a significant amount of work. I mean, garlic's fairly easy, but if you're growing spinach, you'd have to go out there and harvest it, regularly, and package it, and deliver it, and all of that, which is a significant amount of work. And whether you're going to do that, as we had talked about, container gardening possibly, or doing it in the ground. Either way, there's like the typical like garden tending way of doing it, or are you also open to thinking about, food forests, creating some food forests that wouldn't require constant tending, that you could just, plant some things and let it go. And
Mm-hmm.
especially in backyards, I mean, front yards are more regulated by the government and whatnot as to what you can put in them.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's people's backyards, you can, just grow all sorts of stuff, and trees and fruit trees and um, perennials and that sort of thing, that just wouldn't take nearly as much work, but you could still have berries and things and fruit that you can go out and harvest when it's ready.
Yeah, I think I like that idea because it's long term, but I think that see, I'm not too sure. I don't know. Can you get like a perennial food forest type thing established within a year that's going to start producing, or is it like a multi-year
Yeah, not
project?
no no no. You could definitely get some things growing that could be harvested right away,
Mm-hmm.
and you could do some annuals and some perennials. So like you do a succession. So
Mhm.
you know, you might go ahead and put a few fruit trees in the ground, but while they're still growing, you would plant annuals underneath them,
Mhm.
or just like shrubs. And you know, things like sage grow pretty quickly, and you know, you can
Mhm.
you know, either grow culinary sage or sage like to make little, you know, the burning
Sure.
smudge sticks
Sure.
is what
Sure.
I'm thinking of. You
See,
know, like that's
that's what
easy.
we're really on the same page with
Hmm.
that, because
Hmm.
I don't envision a situation where I'm constantly, I need something that you kind of not plant it and go,
Hmm.
but there was, I think there was a book called The Lazy Farmer or something
Hmm.
like that. I
That's
never got
me.
a chance to read. Yeah, but it makes more sense because even especially as parents,
Uh-huh.
as well, I'm sure you understand, like we don't have that luxury, at least initially. It's like
Hmm.
we have so many other things that we have to do, and then projects and life and
Hmm.
other ventures that we want
Hmm.
to.
Hmm.
So the goal really is to have something that's not like labor intensive, but
Hmm.
that provides that, well, like it's kind of like a wellness portfolio. Is if you're
Hmm.
doing the microgreens and we're doing the mushrooms, um things that accommodate that. Like sage is beautiful, people love burning sage. I don't really know about eating it. It's not one of my favorites, but I
Hmm.
would use it as a culinary herb,
Hmm.
definitely.
Yeah, well, herbs are great because the things you might want to stay away from are like tomatoes or
Hmm.
summer squash, because those, like,
Fragile
you have
stuff,
to,
yeah.
they're fragile, you have to harvest them constantly.
Hmm.
um
It
God,
can
cherry
be
tomatoes.
overwhelming. Yeah, yeah, no, I learned
They're
my
the
lesson with
hell.
those. Yeah, they're very abundant, but
Constant.
unless yeah, and things also that can be turned into a product. So, maybe one plot. I think together these, one, two, three, four. If we had four plots, it would be about a just over maybe a
Mhm.
quarter acre. I need to
Mhm.
measure them, but I think they're about 60 by 40. So I need to do that math and see 60
Mhm.
by 40 times four. And the beautiful thing is that we have unlimited amounts of wood chips. We have unlimited amounts of soil, and we would just need to get it in the right place and get it. But it would be a pretty big project. But
Mhm.
once we got it, let's say we did beets on one of the locations, that would be a huge abundance of beets, and you just have the drip irrigation lines.
Mhm.
And those are things that people can eat raw. They store pretty well,
Mhm.
and you can also make, like, you could pickle them. You could
Mhm.
make a, you know, I don't know, coleslaw. You're kind of dipping into that regulatory territory, but things like that. They can also be juiced.
Mhm.
They can, yeah, raw or cooked or pickled,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
then you have a product line.
Yeah.
And when you make the product line out of it, you're
Yeah. Yeah.
tripling, quadrupling your
Yeah.
value of
Yeah.
the
Really,
product.
any root vegetable, you know, you're only going to have to minimally tend it and then harvest it once. Those are
And
good ones.
can you pickle those things in apple cider vinegar, I wonder?
Well, you don't pickle things in vinegar.
Oh.
You
Is there
that's
something that can
that's
be
a
done with? Mhm.
misnomer. You add salt and then let the lactobacillus do its thing.
Oh, okay,
I
okay,
mean,
okay.
you
So that's the only way to
can
pickle
put
anything.
things in vinegar to preserve them. It's not the same
Hmm.
thing as pickling.
Okay. Because see, my thinking is, there's already an abundance of apples, and I was already
Oh,
trying to figure out, like, what do I do with all these apples? Because there's three trees, but they're in Oregon, and they're just going to go to waste. And it's like, okay, we then need to figure out how to donate them. Maybe they can be harvested and made into a product, like a bulk vinegar, and stored.
applesauce.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had that out at the land that I was at
Hmm.
last year, and I made a ton of canned apples. I just chopped them into chunks and then canned them in
Beautiful. Yeah.
syrup. That ended
Yeah.
up using a lot of sugar, though. I think I
Mhm.
enjoyed making the applesauce a little more. It used less sugar and
Sure.
got more apples in a jar.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
applesauce is good. Uh,
I wonder, if there, I mean, literally, those, at least two of the trees produce very, very well. Um, and I just wonder if maybe there's something that can be made, taken to a commercial kitchen, which is it's ironic because it's in the country, but there's a
mhm,
commercial kitchen right in town, like 7 miles
mhm,
away.
mhm.
And you can reserve it by the day. I think it's
Oh,
like
nice.
40 or $50 by the
Mhm,
day.
mhm.
and it's got everything you need and it's certified.
Nice.
So yeah, it's so convenient,
Oh
you
yeah.
know. And so I wonder if something can be made that will facilitate what we're also doing in LA, because that's a
Okay.
huge amount of product that you could store in a food grade drum or a food grade something. And as long as all the regulatory things are being done during that process, if that vinegar or something, whatever is made out of all those apples, could somehow facilitate, you know, combine it with the beets to make, you know, because we can do a quarter acre worth of just beets, you know. I don't know. That's kind of where I'm thinking. But yeah, honing in is something that's going to take maybe another few days to a week for
Sure,
me to, yeah.
sure. Well, yeah, making apple cider vinegar, you could use that. Well, it's one of the Korean natural farming inputs is,
Mhm.
well, actually, there's two of them. There's
Mhm.
fermented plant juice, where you would just slice up the apples and pack them with brown
Brown
sugar
sugar. Okay.
to
Some lacto,
make that lacto. You would make with milk.
milk in the starch, right? Any starch.
Okay, so for the
I've seen people use
lacto,
cereal.
yeah, you could.
Yeah,
So with the technical way they say to do it would be to use rice wash water. Just
that's
like
right.
wash your rice and then use that water to set it out for like 3 days
Hmm.
until it starts to colonize, just gets a little bit sweet smelling. And then you dump that in some preferably fat free milk and let it sit for another about 3 days until it separates and the solid stuff floats to the top and makes a cheese, and then you
Hmm.
just scoop that out and
Dogs love it.
filter. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've eaten it myself too. I mean, it
Hmm.
tastes weird because it's like if you took every kind of cheese and mixed it together.
Yeah.
That's what it
Take
tastes
it as
like.
like a pill. I try not to taste it, but the first time I did it and I read that it's actually really good for you, I
Uh-huh.
was like, okay, I'm gonna inoculate myself with some beneficial bacteria.
Yeah.
And I took it, not, I didn't put it in a pill, but I just put it in and I drank a bunch of water. And yeah, because I know it's good for me, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm a big fan of
Yeah,
KNF.
I've
But
taken the just the lacto medicinally as well.
mhm.
It's good for probiotics, but the cheese is kind of funky
Yeah.
because it's just got so many different things, different kinds of lactobacillus growing in it. It just tastes kind of weird. But that is the traditional way to make like farm cheese, is what it's called.
So let me ask you
Uh
this,
huh.
because, and I would hate to use something that is relatively calorie, you know, it's a good calorie, people love it. It could be, you know, if there's a way to can it in a syrup and actually sell that to people without it being cost prohibitive due to regulation, that could actually be a very good sort of thing, to preserve it and have a product. Um, but on the other hand, it is a blossoming, blooming input. So when you
Uh huh.
use that as
Yeah.
fermentation, you're getting, I'm guessing you're going to get potassium, you're going to get, you're getting things that will facilitate the end result of that as a nutrient in KNFT. I don't know if this is accurate, but it would be used in the bloom cycle of whatever you're growing. I mean, it could probably be used for everything because I'm sure there's
It's
nitrogen,
used
but
throughout because
mhm,
it's just probiotics that benefit the plant and the
mhm,
soil in every stage of growth.
mhm.
Um, yeah.
Mhm.
You could sell it as a Korean natural farming input, sell it as a farming input, and if people wanted to take it as a medicine, they could.
And then we don't have the regulatory piece because it's
Right.
not being sold
You're
as a
not being sold
something that
not
you,
for
yeah,
human consumption, not for
yeah,
human consumption.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it would just be a matter of getting the 1 gallon bottles, and they don't even need to be food grade, but they should probably be like, eco-friendly, or especially like BPA free,
Hmm.
you know, because we want to cater to
Yeah, you use food
consciously
grade.
minded. Okay, so we've
It's
just
not that hard to get.
produced. Yeah, no, that wouldn't be all the nutrients that you need for a garden.
No,
I
it's just
wonder
one.
on this. Yeah, I just
But
wonder.
but I was saying with the apples, we got a
Mhm,
little off on lacto. But with the
mhm,
apples, you could make the fermented plant juice. You could
mhm.
also then make apple cider vinegar. In fact, you could use the byproduct of making fermented plant juice to make apple cider vinegar. Because what you do, you pack it in the
Oh,
sugar, then the sugar sucks the moisture out of the apples. Then you
mhm,
end up with this apple syrup the
Hmm.
sugary apple syrup, but then you strain that off and you end up with this apple pulp. And then you
Hmm.
just add water and let that sit and it turns into apple cider vinegar.
Nice. So yeah, you could even actually maybe use it as a compost starter or something like that. But I mean, then we're talking machinery and labor.
Well, I mean, apple
Mm-hmm.
cider vinegar then you would use as another Korean natural farming input, or you could use it to make like the medicine. So like the way that they say to make the KNF medicine input would be to soak like garlic and angelica and cinnamon and all of these things in
Ah,
alcohol.
OHN, OHN, right?
OHN, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, so they say to soak them in alcohol, but you could do it in vinegar instead. I mean, basically, you're making fire cider.
We could grow potatoes over there and make alcohol out of that.
That as well, but you could make the
Yeah.
alcohol out of the apples.
Oh, cool. Yeah,
Or
yeah, yeah. True,
yeah,
true.
and you got that sugar that's still stuck to them as well. So it's like you just let it sit with some water and it's going to turn into alcohol. If you let the oxygen get to it, it'll turn into vinegar. Either way, you could use that to make your OHN,
Hmm.
or just use it
Yeah.
as the vinegar because fruit vinegar or I guess brown rice vinegar BRV is the input that they would typically use. But they say if you can't get BRV, then you can use apple cider vinegar.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Any
Now,
vinegar other than distilled white vinegar will work.
yeah, I
Any
mean,
fruit vinegar.
I really want to explore this more because this could potentially be done on a budget. I already have on that property, there's a couple of 250-gallon food grade totes
Mm-hmm.
that we were using for water harvesting for a part of the garden that the hose wouldn't reach.
Mm-hmm.
So we were putting a pump in there and running a longer hose out that way. But nothing like that is really going on there. So these things can just, I mean,
Sit
theoretically,
there.
yeah, I mean, if there's a way to just grab all those apples, throw in the inputs in the 250 gallons,
Mm-hmm.
which will probably already be on a truck, you know, to
Mm-hmm.
cart that back to LA, because eventually it's going to need to be bottled and things like that, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
to sell it. But I wonder, yeah, we should investigate that more and maybe teamwork it, you know.
Yeah, yeah. You would just use something to scoop it out and then and strain the FPJ or FFJ FFJ
Hmm.
out, and then just take that pulp and throw it back in the bucket, throw it in a,
Yeah.
and then just add water and let it sit to turn into alcohol or vinegar.
Yeah, this is to me, this is really fascinating because I've experimented and kind of messed around with KNF and I'm really interested in it, but I've never had
Mm-hmm.
a chance to really sit down and really study it and understand it. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm happy that you brought that up because you
Mm-hmm.
just brought back all these memories. Because I used to have this little shelf full of all these different inputs, and I think I failed more than I succeeded. But
Mm-hmm.
the crazy thing is that even if you fail, like you're failing forward for one, so you're learning, but you don't have to throw it away because I mean, even when it didn't come out how they were saying it should come out on the
Mm-hmm.
websites and stuff, I was still using it on the garden, and I never
Mm-hmm.
saw any adverse
Mm-hmm.
effects at
Yeah,
all.
for
So
sure.
it
For
can't
sure.
hurt. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Right now, I've just got lacto fermented plant juice, and I mean, I'm using a little bit of my own fire cider that I made as a medicinal input, and then
What?
I made
That's
some,
brilliant.
soluble calcium out of eggshells.
Oh, that's so
I've got
cool.
like a gallon of that, which I used apple cider vinegar to make
Yeah.
that. So I'm kind of doubling up, getting the fruit vinegar and the calcium together in one.
Sure,
It's
sure.
just the calcium you're only supposed to use in the fruiting and flowering stages. You're not supposed to
Hmm.
use it in the growing stage. You're supposed to just use fruit vinegar. But I have some more apple cider vinegar I can use
Hmm.
in that stage. But anyway, yeah, I'm gonna go water the garden with that stuff tonight.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
I
Oh,
love
and
it. And you
salt.
don't have to
Real
use a lot.
salt. I use the Redmond's real salt from
Hmm.
just natural grocers. You can get it in the bulk bags.
Oh, cool.
It's more
Yeah.
affordable that way, and that's more mineral rich, I think, than sea salt.
Mm. Hmm.
Uh-huh.
I'm definitely going to do some research to kind of see. I wonder if there's any data out there that sort of determine allowed to determine what exactly someone would be getting from that input, so that you can kind of determine, hey, by doing this, we're going to save XYZ on soil inputs and nutrients, organic
Mm-hmm.
nutrients, because I'm trying to just justify the labor and the investment in, getting a truck, going there, doing it, collecting all the apples, doing all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, it feels like it's worth it because I don't know. It just kind of seems like there would be a market for it.
Sure, sure. I think the one that I'm really missing is the fish aminos, because that's like your fertilizer.
Yeah,
That's the really powerful one that I feel like my plants
I've
aren't getting
heard of
enough
that.
food.
Hmm.
Yeah, I need like I'm in Oklahoma. We don't have fish. Like
Wow.
where am I going to get a bunch of fish guts? I don't
I
know.
bet I could get some for you. I'm right near a harbor,
Oh yeah.
really big,
Just like
really big
mail me
harbor.
a huge package of fish guts. I think that would be good.
5 gallon sealed bucket type
Oh
thing.
my god, yeah. That's what I need.
Yeah, it could work.
That would be hilarious.
Yeah. So I'm trying to find like, okay, what are we gonna get from this Apple thing? So I'm gonna do a lot more research on
Okay.
that for sure.
Okay.
I
Cool.
don't want to waste these apples. And I
Sure.
mean, I'd love to even get maybe even, 75% and then donate the rest,
Hmm.
But I know in Oregon, they have a ton of
Yeah,
apples.
I think Korean natural farming inputs is something that could be a business in and of itself. Just
Hmm.
selling the pre-made inputs, um, even selling them mixed together, especially if you have the CSA thing going on.
Hmm.
Because once you combine all of the inputs together, I mean, you're combining, lactobacillus with vinegar with salt. Like it's going to die off. It's going to kill off your bacteria fairly quickly. You really want to use it within 24 hours after mixing it together.
Hmm.
But if you're mixing it together and then giving it to people with their CSA basket to use immediately once a
Hmm.
week, it's like
Hmm.
just enough. Like you're getting 1 cup of this stuff that you can pour into your watering can and just water your plants in your garden with it,
Hmm.
right? Just immediately, just use it right away. Then people could get on a subscription to get their Korean natural farming inputs that they'd actually be using every single week, and they'd get it and they'd use it right away,
Yeah. Yeah, I love that.
pre-mixed, ready to go.
Sure.
Yeah, it's not shelf stable, so it would have to be just like the microgreens and the mushrooms.
Hmm. So I wonder once the input is ready as far as the brown sugar and the apple, like after it's strained, is that sh- is that what you're saying is not shelf stable, or will
No,
that?
the individual inputs are shelf stable. It's once you mix them together.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah, especially if you add water, but yeah, you don't want to leave them mixed together for too long because they'll kind of start wearing each other out.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah, they'll start breaking each
Interesting.
other down, kind of,
Oh.
because
And then it'll
you're
make it that
mixing
dark.
vinegar with sugar, and then you know what I
Uh,
mean.
yeah. So once it's dead, you get the smell probably, or
It starts fermenting.
fermenting. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Cool.
which is fine. You want it to ferment a little bit. In fact, if you could pour it in, a 50-gallon drum with water and let it sit with a bubbler in it
Mm,
overnight, that's the perfect way to do it. Is to add
that
your
sounds
inputs
yummy.
to like a big bucket of water or a drum of water, and then put one of those aerators, an aerator stone in the bottom, and aerate
Hmm.
it for like 12 hours, and then water your garden with that would be ideal, but I'm not doing that. I'm using a dial sprayer that you use for like chemical fertilizers and pesticides and shit. The little like
Hmm.
Miracle Grow sprayer thing you put on the end of a hose.
Hmm.
I'm using that and just putting my inputs in that and spraying my garden with it. The downside of that is that there's chlorine in the water. It's chlorinated water coming straight out of the hose. And so
Mm.
that's going to kill lactobacillus. So ideally for that, I would put one of those inline filters
The
on the
filter,
hose.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I
You
need to get
know,
one of those.
also, so some ideas, I don't know if this, I just, when I think about the regulatory piece of things, I get kind of discouraged because it's a gray area I don't really understand.
Mm-hmm.
So I envision like either a lot of research with the risk of being incorrect about something or paying a consultant,
Mm-hmm.
to instruct and then the logistics behind commercial facilities or
Mm-hmm.
getting commercial.
Mm-hmm.
But just as another idea, fermented apple juice, and
Mm-hmm.
then fermented apple juice with ginger for like an apple ginger, not really a beer, but like, it's kind of got that
Alcohol or
bite.
vinegar fermented?
I'm thinking fermented apple juice with some ginger in it.
Yeah, but fermented into alcohol or fermented into vinegar?
Um, no, I was thinking just fermented just enough
Mm-hmm.
that it's got some probiotics
Oh,
and
like fermented with lactobacillus, like adding lactobacillus to it and letting that ferment for a little bit, like a cavita kind of stuff.
yeah, maybe something like that. Yeah, I mean, I'm not really I'm not well versed on it.
Yeah.
I kind of saw it pop up, and what they're doing is they juice it on this website.
Mm-hmm.
So they juice it and then they skim off the foam. They add a teaspoon, it says, of powdered culture starter and a pinch of salt, and
Yeah. The
put it in
question
the mason
is the
jar.
starter lactobacillus or is the starter yeast?
Good question. Um,
If it's supposed to be probiotic, then it's probably lacto, which would work.
yeah, it looks like
I mean, if you're worried about, uh,
oh yeah, it's
yeah,
probiotics. It's
okay.
it's from the Nourishing Traditions book.
Ah, I've got that.
Hmm.
Uh, I've got her book on fats too.
Yeah,
She's
I
got
would
some good
really like
ones.
to get that book, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, they say it tastes creamy like liquid butterscotch. So I mean, if you add a little
Mm-hmm.
piece of ginger in there, I mean, that's that. I don't know on the health spectrum, but it sounds pretty healthy. I mean, other
Oh
than
yeah.
it's a big dose of sugar, but you know,
Yeah, well, at least it's apple juice. But yeah,
and
I
probiotics.
can't do it because I'm on keto. But
Mm,
that sounds really good. If you're worried about regulatory stuff, and yeah, that would be a regulatory a bunch of paperwork. But if you're worried about that and wanting to get around it, there is an easy way to get around it. Have your CSA be an actual CSA. Have it be a cooperative. Have people actually purchase the product before you give it to them. That way,
mhm.
they own it before you make it, and there's no regulation if somebody makes it and owns it pre-production. Like if you own a cow, you can get as much raw milk as you want. It doesn't matter what the regulations are.
Mm.
So people will buy a share of a cow and then they'll get raw milk delivered to them once a week.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, you can totally get away with it if they own the company, if they own the means of production and they own the product all the way through the process, then they don't have to get it certified. You don't have to use the certified kitchen.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, uh,
Especially if you're selling stuff that's technically not for human consumption. If you sell it as a farming input,
mhm,
then
mhm.
you're totally safe at that point. And here I
The
am
thing
saying
is,
this on the internet. I'm going to get in trouble, but whatever.
yeah. Well, I mean, I mean, I would run it by an attorney just to be safe,
Sure, sure.
and make sure all the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted, and like,
Yeah.
it could be good. It's just have to build it into the budget. But I feel like the apple juice
Mm-hmm.
is a good market, and they say, well, and on the retail side, it's hard to find these fermented apple juices at all, and when you do find them, even
Mm-hmm.
regular apple juice,
Mm-hmm.
it's got preservatives in it.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe as a small scale boutique thing, it could work. I
Mm-hmm.
think it's a lot of apples to juice.
Yeah.
It's a lot to juice. So yeah, I mean, maybe it could work. Maybe it could work. I'd really have to look into
Mm-hmm.
this. I
But yeah, I
actually,
mean, even raw juice is illegal to sell.
yeah, that
Like,
makes, yeah.
so you gotta get around these regulations somehow. I mean, there's still, I guess, some regulations. Like I know there's a farm in Boulder that does like chickens and turkeys, and you own the chicken or the turkey before they slaughter it. They still have to
Hmm.
follow some regulations, but they slaughter it there on the farm.
Hmm.
They're not,
Hmm.
and they process it there on the farm. So they still have it set up, so it's clean. And they might have some regulations they have to follow on that, but it's not having to be sent to a certified facility.
Okay. Okay, that makes sense.
Hmm. Yeah, so if they can do it with chickens, you can surely do it with apple juice.
Sure.
Uh,
Yeah, I wonder. Yeah. Okay. So that's going to be my next research as I wait for all this
hmm
other things to get here for the
Yeah,
mushrooms and the
sure.
microgreens.
Yeah.
I'll
And
start researching that because.
apples last a while too. You can go ahead and pick them and bring them back and figure it out
Hmm.
later.
Hmm.
Make apple juice with some of them. Make fermented plant juice or fermented fruit juice with others. Make apple cider vinegar with more of it.
Hmm. Yeah. I wonder about the equipment, and what that's going to take, and if it, because once you get to LA, even to rent a commercial kitchen, the price goes way up.
Yeah.
So I have to figure it out, and I think we're coming up on when they start to drop, like is that October? I think it is.
Sounds
Yeah,
about right.
around there. Yeah. So
Yeah, you got to go pick some apples.
yeah, we got a little time. I've got some time here to prepare. That would be. It's definitely worth
Yeah. I mean, if
investigating.
nothing else, it's
Yeah.
just sell the apples. Give
Mhm.
them to your people.
Absolutely.
But yeah, you could
Absolutely.
experiment with some different things.
They're definitely organic, and the soil there is just beautiful.
That
So I
sounds
think it
good.
would be. I think it'd be worth it.
Yeah.
Because they've just been going to waste. They've just been fertilizing the land, and yeah, I've got to send you. I'll send you a picture of this. Maybe we can post it on the website.
hmm
It's
hmm
huge, just crazy the amount of apples there.
Uh-huh.
So.
Cool. All right, so we're talking through more ideas. We're almost out of time. We have a few minutes left. Okay. Yeah, we still haven't really answered these questions. Financial. So you wanted to make a sustainable, Oh yeah, I was asking you if you had other locations, what you do, and then I was asking you if you wanted to do, intensive, market gardening, or if you wanted to do more relaxed, like food
Definitely.
forest gardening. And you're saying you're interested in that, or some combination maybe with doing, going and planting some perennials that will grow up over time, but also planting uh, low input, easy
Hmm.
to grow, like root vegetables and things. And that sounds like a really good idea, and getting some inputs for those. Um, but yeah, I don't know if that would be how financially sustainable that would be. We would have to run the numbers on that, like how much beets are you going to grow, how much onions,
Hmm.
carrots, etc. How much money you're going to get for those things? Are you going to include
Hmm.
it in your CSA basket? Or are you going to try to sell them some other way?
You know what I'll do
Mhm,
this week while I'm doing the planning for all the other stuff. I'll communicate with you a lot more,
mhm,
and I'll actually, instead of just getting I'll get the exact dimensions, farmable dimensions of each
mhm,
plot. At least the ones that'll be ready to go within, let's say, 2 months,
mhm,
maybe a month or two.
mhm,
Um, I'll communicate with them, and that way we can lay out, like, okay, how many rows of
mhm,
such and such
mhm,
feet, and with
mhm,
the paths in between, how many do we have, and then we can break that down um, into estimating yield potentially, because you never know
mhm,
what's going to happen. We could have a
mhm,
90-degree day in December. You never know. But yeah, and I don't think, because we have gravity on our side, um, the drip irrigation isn't going to be much of an issue. I don't
mhm.
think, because we drip tube. I just saw a bunch of drip tube, like 1,000 feet, um, on Craigslist. So
Mhm.
could be pieced together.
Yeah.
Especially our soil's free, our compost is free. It's great compost from the
Mhm,
city.
mhm.
Um,
Yeah, I
yeah.
say spread it out, grow some root vegetables. Yeah, just something simple. And root vegetables, they're easy to grow. They store well. So if you're doing a CSA, you could include just a little handful of root vegetables every time and have enough to go for months.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
that way, that sounds like a really good plan.
And there's so many food banks around here. Like, there's so
Mhm,
many people in need. I just uh, I have ideas for how it could sell, but I even have ideas for how it could be given away. And I know that's not sustainable, but
mhm.
that's what I want to figure out, is how can this be produced
Yeah.
with the least amount of inputs and resources,
Mhm,
but great quality product, and just be it's got to be regenerative so that we can keep doing it.
Mm-hmm.
But how can giving away food in this manner actually be sustainable and or regenerative?
Yeah, well, I mean,
You
what
know?
I would suggest doing is doing a CSA membership
Hmm.
that, and go ahead and price it as if you're selling organic produce. Price it
Hmm.
as if you're Whole Foods, but then
Hmm.
do work
Absolutely.
trade. Allow
Absolutely.
people to come out and help you,
Learn.
and
Yeah.
they hourly wage,
Hmm.
reasonable hourly wage, give them $10 an hour to come out and help you, and
Hmm.
just take it off the bill. So
Hmm.
if somebody wants free food, they can come out for 5 hours a week and get a free basket of food
Yeah. Yeah.
every week. you know
Absolutely.
um, but if somebody also has the money and wants to support what you're doing, then they could pay $100 for a basket.
Absolutely. Yeah, because this is my idea. If we get people, and I know we've got the social distancing, we've got rules about how many people can be gathering at one time and stuff, but little by little, we can just start getting people in and interested in exposing them. That plants a seed, and we don't know when that seed's going to germinate. Some people might say, "Yeah, I want I want to do this in my neighborhood." Oh, okay, you'd like to be you could be our regional chapter leader of that neighborhood, of that block, or that zip code. And your job is to basically do, and we're going to help you through all of this, where you do what we've done here and bring other people in and make them leaders so that we can do it with them. Because if we have all this soil available and all these wood chips available, like there's no reason why, um, you know, a lot of times, you hear that we don't have accessibility to land, but through collaboration and using the land that other people aren't using, we're actually sitting on a gold mine. And I see this as a means of, food sovereignty, but also self gentrification, because it can provide an income stream somehow. And if you get
Yeah.
a good number of it going,
Yeah.
you can aggregate all of this into a much bigger collective. And that's kind of that to me, that's the 3 to 5 year plan, you know.
Okay, cool. Well,
It's a lot.
I
We covered a lot.
yeah, I know, and we're at the end of time, and I still want to geek out more, especially with kind of the membership model, for how you could set this up.
Mhm.
And that would give us some good numbers to work with as well. Because if you were looking at it as, okay, we're going to have a monthly membership for so much a month, we're going to have this many members. So that means we could bring in this much money. So how much vegetables should we be growing to supply that? You can kind of nail down how many customers you need, how much you need to grow, that sort of thing. Which I feel like when we're just talking about, oh, yeah, let's grow stuff and sell it, it's not.
Yeah.
You don't have any solid numbers to work from,
Sure.
and I do think the CSA model is way more regenerative than, let's just send it to a store and hope it sells, or else it's going to end up in the
Yeah.
trash.
And you have predictability.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
have some level of
and it makes
predictability.
complete and total sense when you're starting with microgreens or mushrooms,
Absolutely.
because those
Absolutely.
have to be delivered on a weekly basis or they won't be good anymore.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
has to be fresh.
Yeah. The more I think about the apple thing and the as well as the community gardens, I mean, there are a lot of moving pieces, and I'm gonna have to you know get a team assembled to get some help. But I have resources up north that would get involved and who could help, and I really think that this is yeah, it's definitely within our grasp in terms of finding donors and getting the capital to get the soil moved and the beds built and things like that. So
Yeah.
yeah, let's
Yeah.
talk more
Yeah.
about it. Let's
Well,
do
you
it.
can also do, I mean, with a CSA, the whole point is that people could pay for the entire season up front if they have the money. So you could just find some initial customers who are wealthier and have the money and want to support what you're doing, and just get, a dozen of them or so to give you $1,000 each for an entire
Sure.
year's worth of food, and then you'd have the money to do all of it, right?
Yeah, yeah, and we have redundancy at least with 2 or 3. They're small locations, but Curtis Stone put out a video saying that he's on a quarter acre. He's able in an urban city. He's able to. I think he was doing gross 100,000 a year. That's what he said. And he showed like the whole layout and everything. So I really feel like with that intensive model, yeah, omitting the quick crops and the heavy labor stuff, it could
Yeah.
it could be good. So,
Well, except you got the mushrooms and the microgreens, so that's going to be
right,
your heavy labor stuff.
right,
But it's good to have that be the stuff that you can grow year round,
yeah,
because then you
absolutely.
don't have that problem of having a bunch of work to do all at once.
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
totally.
All right, we're going to get off. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Thank you, Isaiah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Always a pleasure.
Great. I'll see you next time.
Be
Bye.
well.